If the year 2026 arrives and you look around to find that absolutely nothing in your life has changed, I want you to understand one thing very clearly. It will not be because you lacked the time. It will not be because you lacked the information, and it will certainly not be because you lacked the opportunity. If you find yourself standing in the exact same place years from now, it will be because in 1,000 subtle, almost invisible ways, you chose familiarity over evolution. We often have this misconception about change. We believe that reinvention is a calendar event, something that happens when the clock strikes midnight at the beginning of a new year. But the truth is far more immediate and far more personal. Reinvention happens the precise moment you decide that who you have been is no longer who you are willing to remain. It is a decision, not a date. There is a fear that comes with this concept. We worry that reinventing ourselves means becoming a stranger, someone else entirely. But reinvention is not about becoming someone else. It is about the courageous act of removing everything that is not truly you. Think about your life right now. Over time, layers have accumulated upon you. Expectations placed on you by others, roles you fell into by accident, survival strategies that once kept you safe, and old promises made in moments of fear. These layers are heavy. By the time a new year approaches, so many of us feel exhausted. We aren't exhausted because life is inherently too hard. We are exhausted because we are carrying identities that no longer fit. To truly reinvent yourself for 2026, you must begin with honesty. I don't mean the dramatic, performative honesty we see on social media. I mean quiet honesty. The kind of honesty that happens when no one is watching and no one is applauding. It is the kind that asks the difficult question, who am I when I am alone with my thoughts? And do I respect that person? Everything meaningful in your life begins with integrity. Integrity is not just about morality in public. It is about alignment in private. It is the firm decision to live in a way that does not require excuses. When your thoughts, your words, and your actions finally agree with each other, something incredible happens. Your energy stops leaking. You no longer need to waste mental bandwidth remembering who you pretended to be. You simply are. Without this integrity, reinvention collapses under pressure. But with it, you create a foundation so solid that even the uncertainty of the future feels manageable. It is an inner agreement that says, even if this is difficult, I will not betray myself to escape discomfort. When you invest in this level of integrity, you stop negotiating your values for convenience. You stop explaining yourself to people who actually benefit from your confusion. As 2026 approaches, you need to ask yourself where you have been compromising your own standards. You haven't done this because you are weak. You have done it because you were tired. But reinvention begins the moment you decide that temporary relief is no longer worth the high cost of long-term self-disrespect. From this integrity grows clarity, and clarity must be fed by learning. A mind that does not grow becomes fragile. This is why reading is so vital. Reading is not about collecting information or trivia. It is about expanding your inner landscape so that life has more than one interpretation. When you read, you are borrowing the minds of those who have walked before you. You gain access to centuries of insight without having to repeat the same mistakes. Just 10 minutes a day of intentional reading can quietly reshape how you see the world. Not because books give you the answers, but because they teach you how to ask better questions. A person who reads consistently becomes harder to manipulate, harder to discourage, and vastly more capable of long-term thinking. But knowledge alone isn't enough. Reinvention requires depth, and depth requires silence. Most people are not lost. They are simply overstimulated. We fear silence, but silence is not the absence of noise. It is the presence of yourself. When everything becomes quiet, the mind finally begins to sort through what actually matters. In that silence, patterns emerge. You start to notice which thoughts repeat, which fears are borrowed from others, and which desires are actually genuine. Silence teaches discernment. It teaches you the difference between what is urgent and what is important. Even a few minutes of stillness each day can recalibrate your nervous system and return you to center. To deepen this process, you must write. When thoughts stay swirling in the mind, they feel overwhelming. When they are written down, they become workable. Journaling is not about productivity or aesthetics. It is about honesty without consequences. It is the one place where you can tell the absolute truth without being interrupted, corrected, or misunderstood. When you write, you externalize your confusion and transform emotion into language. Over time, patterns appear on the page that were invisible in your head. Writing becomes a mirror that shows you not who you think you are, but who you repeatedly choose to be. We must also acknowledge that your body is not separate from your identity. How you care for your physical health communicates to your subconscious how much you believe you deserve. Longevity, strength, and clarity. Reinvention does not require extreme fitness regimes. It requires consistency. Movement reminds the body that it is alive. Rest reminds it that it is safe. Nourishment reminds it that it is valued. A body treated with respect becomes an ally instead of an obstacle. Your energy increases, your focus sharpens, and your emotional regulation improves. You stop fighting yourself just to get through the day. Just as your body matters, your environment matters more than your motivation. A chaotic space silently trains the mind to accept disorder as normal. An organized environment reduces friction. It saves energy. It creates mental breathing room. When your surroundings are intentional, your actions become more intentional too. Reinvention often begins by removing rather than adding. Objects, habits, and commitments that no longer serve you create low-level stress simply by existing. Letting go is not loss. It is space-making. But making space is only the beginning. Once the clutter of the old self is cleared, you face the most critical challenge: filling that void with a new identity that actually sticks. In the next part, we'll discuss how to navigate the friction of change and how to rewire your nervous system so that your evolution becomes permanent.